Welcome to Lawyers Who Care, the video show podcast that highlights attorneys who go above and beyond for their clients. And on each episode, we'll meet a new lawyer and they will share a story of when they went beyond legal counsel for the benefit of their client. My name is Andrew Samalin. I'm the principal of Samalin Wealth, a nationally recognized wealth management firm for lawyers, their firms, and their clients. And let's applaud Lawyers Who Care and learn from them. Today, my guest is Michael Shifrin of Shifrin Legal in Chicago, Illinois. And Michael is a leader in Condo, HOA, and Townhome Association law and was recently named a top 10 leading lawyer in 2025 by MSN. Congratulations on that, Michael.
Thank you so much, Andy. I really appreciate it.
So, Michael, tell us what brought you to the law.
The answer is probably one you hear a lot from most lawyers, and that is the desire to help people. I always had that innate inside of me as a young man. I just had that desire to want to make an impact on other people's lives outside of just my own. And it was that desire to really make a difference in other people's lives in a meaningful and positive way that brought me to the law.
And of all the practice areas that you could have chosen, was this the first one? Did you morph into it? Were you in law school saying, I have to do HOA, condo, and townhome law, or real estate generally, and then you focused? How did you come to that?
It is a long story, and we don't have endless amounts of time, so I will shorten it for you. But essentially, I bounced around early on in my career between law firms, and in one of those law firms, when I drove up to the building where we worked, on the corner was a big stone, and it had my name on the stone, and it just was like, why is my name on that stone? There's some other law firm that has my name that's bearing this work. I got to learn more about it. Long story short, I ended up working for that firm for a long time and learning everything or a lot about this area of the law. And that's really what brought me to this area of the law. It was just sheer coincidence, Andy.
So like everything else, like it just so happened to go that way. And here you are, focusing on it, winning awards regarding it. Is there a story that you want to share with the viewers that speak to, your practice, that speak to you?
Sure. I mean, I can tell you that when I was a young lawyer, actually, when I purchased my first condominium unit, back all those years ago, I showed up to the meeting. I was the only person there in a suit. So not only was I elected to my board, but I was made board president. So I was a young man in my early 20s, and I was the president of this condominium association, responsible for helping set the tone and create the culture for that community. I was learning, I was a lawyer, and I was in this position able to make a positive impact and a meaningful difference for people. It was interesting because the reason I got on that board was really to ensure that the board didn't prohibit pets, because I had a dog, and I wanted to make sure that there was a dog and pets were allowed to stay. But what I learned a ton from working on that board of directors was that it's much bigger than just joining a board for your own personal reason. You have to always think about what is in the best interest of the community at large and take that into account when making these decisions, when you're acting on that board of directors. And serving on that board of directors is really what gave me the insight into both being the client and at some point the lawyer as well, because I got to see what sorts of decisions boards face and how the kind of legal advice and guidance that I would provide as a lawyer could help or harm not just the board, but also the community at large.
So, Michael, if you're the go-to person in this space, then, your case flow is pretty regular. You're seeing some repeating, both themes and stories and things like that. What are the themes that you see regularly, and how do you negotiate through them?
Yeah. So, we really pride ourselves at Shifrin Legal to practice law with both care and compassion, right? That's not just a tagline for us. That's actually something that we really implement on a day-to-day basis. And so when I'm working with a board of directors, which is how these community associations act through an elected board of directors, which can range in size from 3 to 9 people, it's super important that I never lose sight of the fact that there are major issues that impact everybody. And there are at times 3 to 9 clients that I'm working with. So it's that balancing of the different personalities while still keeping focus on the objective of the board with whatever the issue may be. Some of those themes, Andy, that you asked me about, let's talk about rule enforcement, for example. Oftentimes, associations have problematic owners that, while they live in condominium associations, don't necessarily wish to follow the rules that are in existence for those condominium associations. For example, pets. Somebody that absolutely does not care enough to clean up after their pet. We are forever having to write violation letters to owners because they're failing to clean up after their pets. Now, there's two different approaches for how you write that letter. One is a very lawyerly approach where you just are hard and fast and strong and aggressive and somewhat dropping the hammer on the individual. Or there's a more careful, compassionate, thoughtful correspondence that can be sent to that unit owner, trying to assist or help motivate that individual to recognize that he or she must follow the rules and cooperate while living in this community setting. The idea being that we never lose sight of the fact, Andy, that people that live in these associations are also neighbors living aside one another in close proximity to one another. And if we just go in there guns blazing and blow the whole thing up, then there's going to be major discord and disharmony in that community association for years to come. And I don't view that as accomplishing our objective as the legal advisor and counselor to that board of directors.
Right. Yeah. It's not just that issue. You know, people tend to, I don't know, depending on the age, they may not move. They're there for a while. So, you know, it could marinate for a long time.
It can marinate for a long time, and it often does. You know, these personal disputes that tend to arise between individuals living in the same community really can carry on and manifest themselves in so many different ways. It could be extremely problematic to any community association of any size. You know, there's often this common notion, 10% of the community often creates 90% of the problems. And it happens all the time. It's the same repeat offenders over and over and over. For whatever reason, they're just generally disgruntled. And when giving advice and counseling our boards, Andy, we really try to do so in a way that recognizes that they're still also members of the association, and let's do what we can to preserve the harmony that exists within that community association.
So, Michael, before we wrap up, if you could leave our listeners with one takeaway, and what would that be? Let's assume for a second that they're a condo, maybe not a condo president, but a condo board member, or even someone who lives in a condo development.
Yeah.
What would your one takeaway be?
My one takeaway would be, let's not forget, members of associations, that at the end of the day, everybody for the most part has the same general approach and objective. And that is to preserve and protect what is likely the biggest property values and the biggest investments for most people in their lives. And so let's focus more on our similarities than on our differences when navigating some of the complexities that arise from living in a community association.
It's great advice. And by the way, I'd like to thank my guest today, Michael Shifrin of Shifrin Legal. Michael, can you provide our audience with your contact information?
I sure can, Andy, and thank you for that. Shifrin Legal, I can be reached by email at mjs@shifrinlegal.com. You can find me on the internet, of course. I'm also accessible by phone. I pride myself on being responsive, and that is 312-470-2276.
Gotcha. This has been the Lawyers Who Care video show podcast that highlights attorneys who go above and beyond for their clients. And if you're an attorney or know one who does, feel free to reach out to us, 914-666-6600. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Andy. Wishing you and your family all the best.